Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, I think I explained the Gemara yesterday, right before the Mishnah. We're on good hand. I don't think I explained it properly. Where the Gemara there says, the Gemara says that we had Rav Ami said that if a cipher says that the entire Sefer Torah was worked the Lishma, the Klaf, then he said that he's believed and it's no good. So basically, the reason the Gemara is saying why is that different when the guy who says the cipher who says all the Hashem's names is without kavanah, how come there he's only believed halfway, but the Sefer Torah is kosher? So it says that the maskana of the Gemara is that the reason is because the guy must be saying the truth because he's losing all his money. Meaning the guy with the guy with the Hashem's name, so we would think, okay, at least he'll get paid for all the other writing, like what Yirmiyah said. He'll get paid for all the words he wrote. He'll just have to subtract the price of the Hashem's name, because those will all have to be erased and rewritten, right? But the guy with the klaf, who's giving up all his money, and he's still saying it, so therefore he's believed, right? Because why would a guy ever go and say that, by the way, the whole job I just did for you is no good and I'm not making a penny, right? So that's
how will you evaluate the amount? The guy wrote Shalom, he wrote Shalom, and that's worth $1. But if he wrote Yud K Vav K, it's worth $10. I mean, how do we? He says if he left out, maybe the right Yud K Vav K, since it takes more kavanah, it's worth more. It's just how do you make that evidence is fair. But okay.
Yeah, okay, but that's why he's believed, right? Okay, so whatever. That's yesterday. So I just want to make sure I got that clear. So Mishnah. So now we're continuing. We continue with the takanas, right? So we're talking about tikkun olam. So here we have a few takanas, and then we get back to like the tikkun. So hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgah. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgah said, these are all Mishnayos and idiots. And this was the day that Reb Shimon what do you call it? Shimon Gamliel was appointed in the Besmerish. So there was a lot of psukim that came out of Besmerish that day. So one of them was, hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgah ala chareshes.
He was pointed together with somebody else, of Shua ben Levi, right?
Rabbi Shua, correct.
Right.
Correct. So yeah. So hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgah ala chareshes shesiyah on a chareshes, a deaf girl cannot get married, right? Because she's considered like she doesn't have das, but her father can marry her off. So al chareshes shesiyah that her father married off, she had to forget that you could still divorce her. Meaning, if she could only get married because her father marries her off, so how is she going to get divorced? She doesn't have her own das to accept the divorce. So you say that you're allowed to do it. Why? Because you're allowed to force a woman to get divorced. And since you're allowed to force a woman to get divorced, then avada. That's at the minimum. You could do this, right? That's one. Vala katana bas Yisrael. And a katana who's a bas Yisrael shenisas l'koyin, that got married to a koyin, so she's allowed to eat truma. She's allowed to eat truma. Now, katana bas Yisrael is only a marriage midrabanan katana. Right? We're talking about a yisaima. Rashi says the katana yisaima. So that marriage is only a derabana. So she could only eat truma derabana. The mesa by liyashim. But we're saying it's enough of a marriage that if she does die, her husband yashins her. Those are the first two. Vala Morish, this is a famous one. Morish means a beam. Morish Hagazel, a beam that gets stolen and the guy puts it into his house. Shabano Badira, that he builds it into a palace. Then the guy who the beam was stolen from can take the money for it and take the Takonas Hashavim because we want people to do tshuva. Meaning, if a guy steals a beam and he builds it into his house, and then you want him to admit that he stole it to do tshuva, he's never going to admit it because you have to take down his whole house. So like this, in that situation, they will allow him to just pay for the beam, and he doesn't have to actually take off the beam. That's the third takana, and the fourth. Shaloi noida l'rabim. So then, if somebody brings a chatos that was stolen and nobody knew it was stolen, right? So shehi mechaperes mipnei tikun hamizbeach, and that we're going to say that carbon chatos works anyways, and they don't have to bring another one because of tikun hamizbeach, which we're going to see in the Gemara what it means by tikun hamizbeach. But again, so the four cases were that a deaf girl can get divorced, and a katana who's a bas yisrael is only married with a yistaima that's married midrabanan, right? Can eat truma, and if she dies, her husband yashin. Doesn't mean he gets a marriage midrabanan. And then the most famous one, which is that a beam that's built into a house, the guy does not have to pay back the actual beam; he can pay back the worth of the beam. And a chatas that they find out later was stolen, which means that the guy cannot. It's stolen property, so it can't work as a carbon. They said it's going to work anyways. Right, those are the four things. So Amar Rabba, Amar on the Adam. If a guy, we can learn out from this Adam of Yevon Gudel. The guy says to Adam, look at this get that I'm going to give my wife. So in front of Adam, but it's clearly he's going to give a get to the Chazav Amar Allah, and he went, and when he gave her the get, he said to her, Kinsi Shtar Chayv Zeh. Instead of telling her that this is a get, he told her that this was a Shtar Chayv, like an IOU. Arezu Migareshes, she's divorced. Now, even though he fooled his wife, right? Meaning he told the Adam that it's a get, but when he gave it to the wife, he tells the Shtar Chayv. So what's the pshat of this? So because Mila Yamar of Yechon would like to say that she don't need das, right? You don't need das to divorce a woman. That's why you can divorce a deaf woman. She doesn't need She doesn't need das. Meaning he could fool his wife and say that this is a shtar chayv when it's really a get. She takes it, she opens it up, and she says, "Oh, I'm divorced." That's okay because you don't need das. That's what we know from our Mishnah. Because the cherish doesn't have das, she can get divorced. So this too. So what's this pshita? That's pashut. If you don't need das, you don't need das. No, somehow the same account. Since she said, I'm sorry, he didn't say it. He told his wife, take this shtar choy, the tuli butler. Therefore, he was mavatal it, and he was mavatal the get. Meaning, originally he thought it was a get. Then when he said it was a shtar choy, he was mavatal it. Kamash Malan. It teaches us that he was not mavatal it, because im isa the butler the Adam have a umbrella. If Yitaka was mavatal this get, he would have told it to the Adam. The reason why he said this is because they were embarrassed. Right? He was embarrassed. I'm sorry, not they. He was embarrassed to give the get to his wife. He was bashful. He felt bad. He didn't want his wife. He wanted basically to give his wife a get without having to look like a bad guy. Right? So therefore he told her it was a shtar chayv. But the bottom line is it works. It works. Right. Katana Bas Yisrael. Then the next one was that a Katana Bas Yisrael, she gets married to a Kohen, right? So then she could eat the truma. Ilu chareshes lo yachla. But let's say it was a deaf girl who married a Kohen, right? So she's not allowed to eat truma because that marriage, right? And that's not a proper marriage. Yeah, my time is zera shema yachol perish b'chareshes. The reason is that if we're going to allow a female who's a chareshes to eat the truma, then maybe if the kohen is a cheresh, you're also going to eat truma, which for sure doesn't work because that marriage is totally not good, right? So Mamela, we're not going to allow a bas Yisrael who was deaf, who married a regular kohen. We're not going to allow her to eat truma because we're afraid that she might marry somebody who's deaf, in which case there she can't eat truma. So says let her eat the truma. What's a big deal? Katan oichel nevelasu. We've had this a few times. It's a major sugya, right? It's a katan who is eating nevelas. Meaning, are we mechuyev to stop a katan from doing an avera? Right? Which the Gemara is asking. You're not mechuyev to. So good. So let's say this kitana marries a kohen who's deaf, and she's eating truma. Whoop-de-da. It's a katan. You're not mechuyev to stop a katan. So the Gemara says, "Gzeira shema yachol cheresh b'tikachas." Right? Gzeira, no, it's an additional gzeira that we're afraid that maybe she is going to the cheresh is going, meaning the kohen who's deaf is going to give truma to a regular woman who's not deaf, right? So memela, that's what we're afraid. The lechel with truma de rabbana, right? But she could eat truma de rabbana because the marriage is the rabbana they can marry. So when that is not, that doesn't work either. Gzeira shem ba'asi lachuli b'truma deraisa. There's a gzeira that they might end up eating truma deraisa. I mean, it's not easy to know what the difference is between truma derabbanan and truma deraisa. Meaning, basically, the gist of what the Gemara is saying is that if the marriage is an issa derabbanan, right? If it's an issa derabbanan, so you can eat derabbanan to get truma. If not an issa derabbanan, if it's a marriage with derabbanan, they can eat truma deraisa. If it's a marriage deraisa, they can eat truma deraisa. So we're just afraid that they're not going to know the difference. So therefore, we do not want any deaf woman, right, marrying a cheres, a kohen cheres, kohen not cheres. We don't want. It's all out. Now it seems like if you analyze it, it seems to be like a gezerah on top of a gezerah on top of a gezerah, right? Now imagine if Akiva or Gershon were on, that would be the kasha. Right, but we got Naftali Landau on for the first time in who knows how long, and he's not asking that question. Okay, all right, fine. Then the next of all, Marisha goes with Shibano, right? So if you take a beam and you put it into the building, so we don't make the guy knock down his house to give the beam back. If guy steals a beam and he puts it into a bira, holds you take down the whole house, and you have to give the beam back. So Bishame is not concerned for this takana that the guy's not going to admit it. He only gets the main marish because of takonas hashavim, right? Meaning that, so our Mishnah is obviously paskening like Beis Hillel, right? Fine. Chatas kazula. So then the next thing is chatas kazula, on a stolen chatas, yeah? So Amar Ula, Dvar Torah, Bein Noida, Bein Loy Noida, Minat Torah, whether the Kohanim knew that this korban chatas is stolen, whether they don't know, Eina mechaperes. It's not mechaper, it's stolen property. My time, Yish Kedi, like Kani. Yish by itself, a person is not kohen, right? So Mamela, since the Ganav never had the animal, Mamela, he can't make it hektish. So therefore, it's not a kosher animal.
How did he bring it to the base of Mikdash?
How was that mean?
Well, the reason is because he had to do Mashiach, he had to lift it, I had to do something else to be kind of it. So even if the owner was Miyayish, the act of bringing it to the base of Mikdash is an act of Kinyan.
Yeah, but it's not. What do you mean? It's not. He was saying that there was no years.
Didn't we just say years?
Years kadi by itself is not. Years kadi is not enough. But this is
not only years. Let's say he did have years, and that's not enough. But there is another Maisa. The Ganaf is now schlepping it to the base of Mikdash, or carrying it, whatever. However, you bring a cow to the base of Mikdash, and so he did a Maisa. He did a Maisa of Kinyan then. So there was years, and there wasn't Kinyan. We know he had to bring it to the base of Mikdash. He couldn't check the chutz. We're talking about the shechting in the base of Mikdash. So what do you do? I'm going to say he stole it right. He stole it from the guy when he just brought it to the base of Mikdash. He must have stolen it somewhere else. And then when there's years, then there was but there was not only years. There was a Maisa of a Kinyan now.
So, yeah, but there was no years. We're concerned there's no years.
So when there's no yish, okay. But if there was a yish, then it would be a Kinyan there.
I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I thought it was for sure it's yish. I don't know. Anyways, I mean, are you saying that this Shined Rishus? What do you want to say?
Well, that's the Gemara is mashma when it says my time yish kali lo kane, right? They're saying it was yish, but that's not enough anyway to make the kinyan, right? What? But we know there was something else because it's mashma that there was some kind of yish, but that in itself is not enough. But there is something because he's doing a ma'aser kinyan by schlepping it, by doing a meshicha and then bringing it to the base of mikdash. So that becomes a ma'aser kinyan, no?
I know, but the ma'aser, if there's no yish, then nothing starts, right? Right? I don't know. Okay, whatever it is. So let's see. So again, so he's saying that mitaraisa, this carbon is no good. So why do we say if the Kahanim didn't know about it, it is a kapara? So you Kahanim atzevim. So the Kahanim shouldn't be sad. They shouldn't be depressed. Why? Because what happens, we have all the Kahanim on tonight, right? Because what happens is that they brought a carbon that was not a carbon into the base of Mikdash, shechted it, makriv it, and they're eating it, which is mamish puzzle carbon. It's chulin shenish azara, right?
Very nice barbecue. Thank you very much.
Basically, right.
Whether it's a chatas, a shlom,
no joke, Rachel. Basically, that's what it's going to say.
We are having a good time.
On our base, that's exactly what it's going to say. Right. Yeah, fine. But anyways, that's the first shot. So Amri le Rabbana le'ulav anan b'nei tikkun mizbeach, but that's not the reason it says in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that it's because of tikkun mizbeach, right? We're saying here because it's tikkun for the kahanim, right? And here you're saying that it's tikkun. It's here you're saying it's like tikkun kahanim, right? Right, so that's the Gemara's kasha. So since the kahanim are depressed, therefore the mizbeach is going to be bottled. Because now every time the kahanim get a carbon, they're going to start doubting: is this a legit carbon? Is it not a legit carbon? Right? Right, so that's the first pshat for Rabbi Yehuda. So this is the opposite. Whether they knew about it, whether it was stolen, whether they didn't know about it, it's mechaper. My time, yish kiti koni. Yish by itself is kind of base now. And what's the reason why noida is not mechaper? Because then people are just going to say, oh. I don't know exactly how to say this, but basically, they're going to think that people who are seeing this are going to say, the mizbeach eats people's stolen property. That's what they put onto the mizbeach. So since it's a busha for the mizbeach, right? So therefore, they said the guy that knows, meaning if you would know that this thing is stolen property and they bring it on the mizbeach, that's going to be puzzle. Meaning, this pshat is saying a stolen carbon is a kosher carbon, because we assume there's giyush, and once the guy's miyayish, it becomes the guy that crooks carbon, and he could be makdish. But when everybody knew about it, we can't allow that carbon to be considered kosher, because then everybody's going to talk about the mizbeach, that it eats stolen property, right? So two totally opposite ones.
When you say it's mechaper, that doesn't automatically make it mutter b'achila. You know, for instance, you shechted a shlomim shlol lishma.
Yeah.
It's oil. Oil is also it's also a kosher korban. But or shlomim would say oil is not eaten, but shlomim guy brought in shechted shlol lishma. It's a kosher korban. But it doesn't mean it's are you allowed to eat it?
Yeah.
So here too, then once you say it's mechaper, does it mean that it's also mutbel chila?
Right. Okay,
Even
but
though
right.
even though it's got a problem. I mean, in another block, we're going to say, oh, the people are going to say you brought the pagam on the mizbeach, you brought the right, so you should also be worried about what we should be worried about here too. Okay, see, it happens later on.
Okay, so right. No, I hear. Okay, so I'm going to ask Bisham Ula Hainu Ketani Chatas. So according to Ula, why do we have to say? Meaning, there's two types of karbanos. There's a chatas, which is edible, and there's a oila, which is not edible. If the whole problem is that we don't want the mizbeach to look crook, then it does like that it eats stolen property. Then you don't have to have a chatas. It could even be an oila. Bisham Ula Hainu Ketani Chatas. A little Yehuda. Ma'ishna ma'ir yechatas afilu oila nami. What do you have to say that it's dafka chatas? Even if it's an oila too, it's going to look like the mizbeach is eating stolen property. The one answers let me buy copper. It's saying let me buy oila the kalil the. It goes without saying that an oila, which is kalil, means completely eaten by the mizbeach. So then it's going to look like the mizbeach eats stolen property. Even a chatas, the chayla v'dam, the stolen mizbeach, that they're the fats and the blood from the mizbeach for idoch kahana machlule, but the rest of the animal kahanim eat. You should still make the gzeira shelo yomru mizbeach oifel gazelas. So people shouldn't say that this is a mizbeach that eats gazelas. So basically, we're saying that it's a loimi ba'ikama. Really, it could be, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it could be talking about an oila and it could be talking about a chatas.
Why don't we throw in that we're not worried about the Kohanim eating gazelas?
No, because according to this sheet,
either one. That the Shelo Yomer Mizbeach Ocha Gazelas. It should say Shelo Yomer Kohanim Ocha Gazelas.
No, because he holds that with the Yush, the carbon is legit. As hard as it is to understand, this sheet, the Rabbi Yehuda holds the carbon is legit.
If everybody knew about it,
it's not geyser.
Yeah. No, I'm saying. Right. So I think no, Avi doesn't make sense.
no, it makes sense. I'm just trying to say, like, the Gemara is going out of its way, I guess. If they're worried about the Mizbeach eating gazelas, why aren't they worried about a Kohen eating gazelas? Nobody, a lulav hagazol is puzzle, whether you know it or not. No.
Yeah. You're saying lulav agazos, whether it's but that's also going to be telling you whether there was use.
Lulav hagazol another reason too, because you need a hitter. So you can't bring that as a proof either. That's a separate pasuk. Over here, the Yish takes it out of Gazela. You want to say it's a problem? Well, the problem with what are you going to say? There's a Kohen who's oichel gazelas. You got so many kahanim over there fighting over the food. That Kohen's eating gazela. This Kohen's eating. But to say it on the mizbeach, that's a big zach. So it's like puzzling the mizbeach. It's a bigger patch in Punim to say it on the mizbeach than just on one Cohen. One Cohen who made a mistake.
Yeah.
The oil too. It's not totally complete. Oil of the hide goes to the Kahanim too. So the Kahanim going down the street with fancy leather pants and jacket. That Cohen. Look at that Cohen going down there with the oil of gazelle. We're really worried about. He's going down like cowboy clothes. He's a thieving Cohen. Far fetched.
I hear. Yeah. Okay, let's see about it. It's not. Al chatos akazula shaloi noidel rabin, right? Al chatos gazula that nobody knows about. Imechaperes with tikun amizbeach, right? So it's mechaper. Is mechaper because of tikun amizbeach. So bishlam leula nicha. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up here with the cases. Right, this is talking about the standard, the chatas gzula that nobody knows about, and it's mechaber because tikkun hamizbeach. So according to Ula Nicha, makes sense because what's the Mishnah saying? Because of the tikkun hamizbeach, which we understood to mean tikkun for kahana. The kahana are going to be depressed. El Rabbi Yehuda, if Rabbi Yehuda should have said the opposite. And when it says achanami kama, it really does mean that. Loi noidel mechaperes. If he didn't know about it, it's mechaper. Noida, if they knew about it, ain't a mechaperes. If they tikkun hamizbeach, because they tikkun hamizbeach. Fine. So the Masav Rava asked the kasha. So now we know that when somebody steals an animal and he shechts it, so he has to pay back double, right? And if he does, what do you call it?
Sells
call it? No. I'm saying dollar behay.
Smaller behem and a larger behem, no?
Correct. So meaning if it's a behemoth, what's it called?
Daka.
If it's a daka, it's kefil. It's double. If it's a gasa, it's going to pay dollar behay. Whatever it is, but that's only if he messes with the animal. Right. So what happens if he stole the animal, the hektish, and then he made it hektish. Now, hektish, you don't have to pay back kefil or dollar behay. Then he shechted it, and then he sold it. So mishal teshum kefil, he does pay kefil. Right? We'll get but he does not pay 4 or 5 times. Right? If in this case, if he shechted it outside the Beis Hamikdash on his kodesh, he gets kodesh. Why? Because it's considered hektish. Right? Meaning, so we're trying to figure out when the guy stole it, made it hektish, then he shechted it. Right? So we're saying that he doesn't have to pay dalet behay. He has to pay kefil. He has to pay double. He doesn't have to pay dalet behay. But if he shechted it, he's getting outside the Beis Hamikdash. Then he's getting kodesh, which means that it's hektish, because hektish cannot be shechted outside the Beis Hamikdash. So how do we reconcile all this? And if you say but yish by itself he's not koina, kodesh my everything. Why is he getting kodesh? Right? It's not a carbon. Right? If we say that yish does not make it.
If the owner if yish doesn't work, then how does he have koyach to make it hektish? How does he have a koyach to make it hektish? It's not his.
That's exactly what the Gemara's kasha is. So how could he be chayiv kodesh? How can a guy be chayiv kodesh? Good, you want to say that kefil, yes, dalet ve'hei, not fine, but what kodesh? How can you consider kodesh? Amar Rav Shizvi, kodesh midivrayim. Kodesh means it's kodesh midirabbanan. Now, what does that mean? So achicha like kodesh midivrayim miika. So they laughed at him and they said, since when is there such a thing as kodesh midirabbanan? Right? But the kodesh comes from Hashem. How can you say it's a kodesh midirabbanan? So Amalu Rava, Gavra Rava, Amar Milsa. Rava said when a Gavra Rava like Rav Shizvi says something, don't laugh at him. Kodesh shal yedei divrei basle. What he meant is not a kodesh midirabbanan. Avada Chachamim can't give kodesh, right? He's talking about a kodesh through a dirabbanan. Because why? Ukmur rabbanan b'reshusei. Even though be'etzem the carbon is not his because there was no yish, but the rabbanan made it like it is in his rishus. So that since it is in his rishus, then according to the rabbanan, it's a kosher carbon. And then in order that he should be chayiv kodesh, right? Meaning it's a fascinating thing. Basically, using hefker bezdin hefker, right? Bezdin is basically saying, yes, granted, this carbon is not his carbon. He doesn't own it, right? But we're going to make him own it like this. When he shechts it out of the Beis Hamikdash, it was a kosher carbon out of the Beis Hamikdash, and now he's chayiv kodesh. So mid the Rabbanan have the koyach to make him chayiv, kodesh. So now Rava says a different thing. This is definitely a question to me. When the Chachamim said that this thing is in his rishus, mishas keneva or mishas hekdesha, is it his from when he stole it, or does it become only his from when he made it into hektish? The my nafkamina, what's the difference? So when it says l'gizu say the difference is for when he what do you call it, Rachman? When you share, right? When you cut the hair off of the animal and its fetus and its baby, right? So what's the din? Meaning, if it's his from when he steals it, right? So then he's going to be able to keep all of it. But if it only comes as once it's hektish, then he won't. It becomes his once he makes it hektish. Why? So that it won't be that the one who does a chet is the one who gets scar. Meaning, this guy's a crook. So what do you want to say? That he's a crook? Some of Mela, he should get to keep the hair, and he should get to keep the blood too. No, that we're not going to say. It only became his after it became hektish.
We only can ask him because by the Rabbanan we made it his, and that way he's able to be a chayiv koris. But not so much that we didn't so much take it out of the owner's property and make it into his property. But we now we say even the payers he doesn't get. I don't know. I think the guy should get something. I don't know. I'm not a devil's advocate, but the guy they're already going to give him make it so he's chayiv koris, but so that the kid if he kidded, what then that way also. In Yonah Diyuma, we had they were shearing the sheep over at Camp Nagila today.
I hear. Okay.
Whatever.
Fine. Okay, now we change subjects. We start the Churban a little bit. So my Mishnah says, Loya Sikrikin. Now we had a mention of Sikrikin before. Loya Sikrikin be Yehuda, Haruge Machama. Sikrikin basically are the mafia. They come to a Yid and they say, give us your land. And if you don't give us your land, we're going to kill you. So they gladly will give up their land in order for their life to stay alive. Now the problem is that these Sikrikin will now go sell their land. So the shaila is, what happens when a Yid buys the land off the Sikrikin? Right?
But the Sikrikin pay for it.
They do pay for it, yes. They pay a very cheap price, but they do pay, right? We had this, where do we have it? About a week ago. That the Sikrikin pay for it. They'll pay. They're just going to force you out of your land, they're going to pay. And then they're going to go flip it for whatever. Unlike me, who had my car stolen from in front of my house on Friday, and they ain't offering any money for it. And I'm sure that car is long gone. They stole 3 cars from my mother's block. I wasn't home. My mother's car, really, not my car. It's under my name. They stole 3 cars Friday night. And they went over to Triborough Bridge. It was stolen at 3:20 in the morning, and they went over to Triborough Bridge. And then the Throgs next to somewhere in the Bronx probably stripped totally down. And they didn't offer any money to us. They didn't leave any money in the mailbox. Right? So these Sikrikin, like Zev said, at least they give some money. But now they go flip the houses. So can somebody else buy the house in them or not? So Gemara says, Sikrikin be Yehuda, Paruge Mechama. When they were killing people during Mechama, there was no Sikrikin. But after the Mechama, Yesh pa Sikrikin, then there is Sikrikin. So what's going on here? Ketzad. Look up with Sikrikin. If a guy bought a field from the Sikrikin, now he knows when he buys that field in the Sikrikin, then he knows that Sikrikin that land probably came from a Yid. So first he goes to the guy, then he goes and he takes it from the Balabayas, meaning the original owner. Mekhay batal, so the mekach is batal, right? Meaning again, if he goes to the Sikrikin first to get the land, then he goes and he wants to pay money to the original owner, then it's batal. If he takes it from the Balabayas, meaning what?
Paying twice for his land?
Not the internet's not coming in.
I think he asked, are you paying twice for the same thing?
Yes, yeah. I think so. I think twice for the same thing, or it's a combination of something, right? So, but if he does it the opposite, he takes it from the Balabayas first, and then and then he takes it from the Sikrikin Mechoi Kayan. Right? Meaning the reason is that if when he took it from the Sekrikin first, and then he took it from the Balabayas, right? Then the reason why the Mekach is bottled is because the Balabayas probably never wanted to sell it. Right? The only reason why he sold it is because he was scared. Right? But if he went to the Balabayas first, and the Balabayas took money for it, and then he went to give the Sekrikin money, then clearly the Balabayas is fine selling the field. Right? That's what this whole issue is did the Balabayas legitimately sell it or not? Fine. Then the Gemara says in another case, but nothing to do with Sekrikin. Lokach min ish. Let's say a man buys a land from a husband. Now the husband's land is always yeshubah to the wife for the ksuba, right? The lokach min ish, v'chazav lokach min isha, and then he goes and he takes it from the wife. All right? Meaning he paid the husband, and then he went and he paid the wife. So that like this, in case the husband divorces her or dies, then she owns the land, so she's also paying it. So then mekach batel, the mekach is batel, right? Because maybe since the husband already sold it, so the wife could say, "Oh, my husband sold it, so that's why I agreed to it." But if he went to the wife first and said, "Give it to me, let me sell you, let me buy the land," she says that, fine. And then he goes and buys it from the man. Then mekach because she couldn't have been, she wasn't forced. Fine. So Mishnah Rishonah, that was the first way they taught it. Bezdin Shacharei, but Bezdin that came after them said, no, halakeh with Sekrikin. When you buy land from this Sekrikin, Noisan Labailam Revia, all you have to do is you have to give 25% to the original owner, and then you keep the land. Amasai, for how, when, does not change beyond Likach. That's only when the original owner can't buy the land back. But if he could buy the land back, then obviously they have Kadima to buy it back from this Sekrikin. Right? Rebbe had a different thing. Rebbe made a Bezdin, and they counted, meaning they voted, that if this land stayed by the Sekrikin for 12 months, then whoever comes to take it first is Zaycha. Right? I will nice and lebailim revia, but you have to give a 25% to the bailim. Now, the reason why there's 25% to the owner is the assumption is that the Sekrikin knocked down the land, the price of the land by 25%. So you have to know. Listen, I was speaking to a 90-some-odd old Holocaust survivor a few months ago, and he was talking about like how he never got any money for his land, that they just, people lived in regular houses and they just came in, knocked them out. He said, I went back there. He said, I went back. This guy goes back. So he does Kiruv, goes back to Europe. And he says, I went back there. And you want to tell him, like, get out of my house. Right? He's not Miyayish, this guy. I guess that's how he survived the Muhammad, but he's not Miyayish. He still has all these kindness. Like, why these guys take my land and not pay me back? Right? So whatever, that's sort of what we have going on here, right? Anyways, so now the Gemara asks. The Mishnah seems to be strange. It says that during wartime there's no Sekrikin, but after war there is Sekrikin. Should be fakir. During war, everybody's busy attacking each other. So when it says Hashta Barugi Sekrikin, if when they were actually fighting there was no Sekrikin, but after the war the Yeshba Sekrikin there is. So Amar Yehuda, that's not the way you understand Pshat Mishnah. Like Danu Badim Sekrikin Kamar. What the Mishnah means is, of course, there were Sekrikin. There was Sekrikin before, there was Sekrikin after, right? But we're not going to judge anybody with these halachas of Sekrikin that the Mishnah goes to say. We're not going to judge them, because when it's during war, so then it's crazy. What does that mean? There were 3 gezeras that they made. Titus, right? Titus, when he was fighting the Yidden and attacking the Yidden, right? They made 3 different rules at 3 different times. So the first gezerah was called the if anybody doesn't kill a Yid, meaning if somebody has an opportunity to kill a Yid and he doesn't, he gets killed. That was 1. So that means obviously everybody's life is in major danger, right? Meaning if a guy tries to bribe the guy by saying, don't kill me, take my land, that guy is putting his life in danger, right? Yeah, because and then Rashi says he's going to give it b'leiv shalom, right? Fine, that's the first. That was the first takana. Mitziyasa, the middle one was called the kotel laisi arba zuzi. Anybody who kills has to pay a fine of 4 zuz. Why? Because they didn't want them killing Yidden. And then Basraisa, the last one was called the kotel liktelu. Whoever kills should be killed. The hilkach kamaisa mitziyasa. So the first and second, that was that they had kiva the kotli agav einse gomer makni. Since in the first 2 cases they taka were going to kill the Yidden because the knas of the 4 was not really a major knas. So since the first 2 he actually said he's gonna they really put the Yidden's lives in danger, so it'll be makner. Pasraisa amri, but the second, right, the last takana ha'idna lishkol. Then he says, take my land today, because tomorrow I'm going to bring you to din. I mean, because in the last case, they were not allowing people to kill you. So therefore, the strong arm guy comes to his karka and says, hey, I'm going to take your karka, I'll give you some money, whatever it is. So the guy says, okay, I'll let him take it. And then I'll go bring him to court and I'll get it back. Right? Yeah, fine. So we'll stop over there. Mustama will just do tomorrow's daf tomorrow, unless everybody thinks it's we got to do the daf according to the way. At least it fell out. At least Kamsa is falling out during the 3 weeks. At least that much.